firstly, that I'm Peter Glynn. I'm the president of the Ireland chapter of PMI. Firstly, I'd like to say a very warm welcome to everyone to this fabulous event that is taking place this evening. I'm thrilled uh, that we are delivering this event in partnership with PMI South Africa. And as we all know, it's one big global family in PMI, and it is fabulous. It's fantastic that we are delivering this on a joint basis, and I'm really excited about having the two chapters working together in partnership. So it's really fantastic to have everyone involved from both sides. A big thank you. Um, just on a personal perspective, I'm a huge rugby fan. I played from the age of about 10 up to the age of about 42. So I've been quite obsessed with rugby a large part of my life. And I'm thrilled that we're holding this event less than 48 hours away from a very important rugby game that's been held in the Aviva Stadium in Dublin. And obviously, we've all got a big interest in the game. We've all got a big interest in project management. And and an absolutely fantastic event to have where we've got three amazing speakers in that we have Kobani, we have Bias, and we have Ronan, who all in their own right are obviously absolutely immersed within rugby and fantastic presenters in their own right. And I'm really looking forward to all that they have to say here this evening. Really, that it's an exciting event. We also want to highlight that we are running a set of prizes this evening for whoever is going to guess the score on Saturday for the match, and whoever gets the closest score against the actual result will win a rugby jersey on the Ireland side and a rugby jersey on the South African side. So it just brings a little bit of competitive edge into the event, which is always fantastic. And it's amazing just to have so many of our friends and our colleagues across the Ireland chapter and across South Africa here at this event. And I'm now going to hand over to our South African president to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And thank you, everyone. Good evening, everyone from every corner of the world where you're listening. So my name is Ayanda Nyikana, for the islanders who don't know me. I'm the current president and CEO of the PMI South Africa chapter, and it's a pleasure for me to be here with you. And in this event, we bring Agile and Rugby. I do not have 32 years of experience of rugby, but I have a representative here. We have our guest, and I've got full support. He's bringing all his years of rugby, representing all of us from South Africa, Kobani, and really pleased. And I really would like to thank from the bottom of my heart, PMI Ireland, for this collaboration and hosting this webinar. This has never been done before, and we are very proud to be part of this event. And thank you, Peter. So there's 5 things that I wanted to highlight when you bring Agile and Rugby together, and that we have common things, which is we focus on teams over individuals. And then the next one is inspect, adapt, and improve. And in Agile, we always do that. And the same as Rugby, it's a cycle of constant inspection, adaptation, and also reading the fields, tactics. And that's the common part. And the third one is communication. And communication being a backbone is very difficult for most of the teams. And I think with agility, it gets us to improve more and to be alert and to understand that communication, you need to communicate intentionally, and both in rugby as well. All the rugby players here or the rugby experts will expand on that. And also leadership through empowerment. That's a crucial fact that we have in common in terms of Agile and Rugby. And with all that said, By exploring the shared principles between rugby and agile, we gain richer understanding of the framework, and which is teamwork, resilience, and performance. And today's session isn't just about comparing the two disciplines, but about learning how high performance teams succeed, whether they're delivering a project or driving towards a try line. With the closing, I would say thank you for joining us today and for your commitments to learning and growth and leadership. And once again, thank you to our guest speakers. BS, thank you. And my Island, Babani, and Johan. I hope this session inspires everyone who's here, and also the betterment of your teams, and perhaps even the game of rugby won't be a new thing, but you will look at it at a new light. Thank you.
Thanks. I think it's over to me now, Peter. Thank you, Peter. Thanks, Ayanda. Ayanda, loving the South African jersey look from Q6 first floor. Well done. And great to get that link between Agile and rugby going already. That's what we're here for. Peter, it's hard to believe it's 20 years since you stopped playing rugby. That's fair play.
Not quite, Paul. Not quite.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Paul, and I lead the Ireland chapter of PMI Agile Community of Practice. And one of our goals in this community is to drive collaboration with other chapters and to bring the best of the PMI to all our members. And we're certainly doing that with South Africa this evening. A quick thank you to the volunteers. Volunteering is a huge commitment. It's a pain in the neck at times, but it's working on events like this. It's the amazing people you meet and these experiences that really make it worthwhile. So thanks to all our amazing volunteers in Ireland and South Africa for making this happen. Well done. Onto our agenda, as Ayanda said, our theme is rugby and agile, and in particular the lessons from rugby for project professionals. So we have three amazing speakers whom I'll quickly introduce. We'll have a panel discussion, we'll have a quiz and a competition. Everybody is going to want those Ireland jerseys. Don't know about the South Africa ones, but definitely people will be wanting the Ireland jerseys. And then we'll have questions and answers. We'll run for about 90 minutes to finish at 6:30 Ireland time, 8:30 South Africa time. So our speakers, I don't know if we have another slide just on the speakers there, whoever's driving, but first we have Ronan, and Ronan is an IT leader with over 22 years of experience from World Rugby on the IT side. So he's going to talk to us about lessons from rugby event management, both big and small. Then we'll have Bias. Bias is an agile leader and a consulting partner in a business agility practice, and he's going to share with us his perspective on the industry in South Africa. And finally, and apologies again on the pronunciation, we have Kobani, a former Springbok centre, now a broadcaster and co-founder of a creative content agency, and he's going to talk to us about leadership at the box. So we're going to hear from inside the tent some of those conversations and insights that we probably wouldn't hear about otherwise. So look, fascinating presentations and panel discussion ahead. Please enjoy and do ask lots of questions. So first up is Ronan, so over to you, Ronan.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak and for taking the time. I won't apologise. I'm going to put on an Irish hat because it's a bit one-sided at the minute between South Africa and Ireland. So that's just to kind of balance it up a bit for all the Irish people on the call. So yeah, Ronan Donner, I was with World Rugby for 22 years up until earlier this year where I left them. I've been involved in 16 World Cups, 2 Olympics, 1 Commonwealth Games, and quite a number of under-20s and 7s events. And I suppose in thinking about this, I think the big difference between events and normal projects, if we just want to go on to the next slide, please. The big difference between events and normal projects, there's very little left in the world that people watch live. It's news and it's sport. You know, I've been involved in multiple IT projects where it slips, whether it be time or budget or new requirements come in and you know, we can push out deadlines. You can't do it in sport. If it's going to kick off at 8 o'clock on a Saturday evening, it's kicking off at 8 o'clock, come hell or high water. You know, there's only 2 things that stop a game. Unfortunately, one is someone passing away, and the second one is lightning. Apart from that, it keeps going. So when we talk about projects, events, particularly major events, it is happening. There is no slowing it down. The big difference, I think, as well between events and obviously project management is core to successful event delivery. But it's this last bit, the closure we have around projects. It's great when a project is done and delivered and we do the closure and we take the learnings away from it. But in major events, that can be a very long tail. Like the closure of a major event after the final whistle can go on for literally years afterwards, because there's always a wrap up around finances and reporting and government relationships and things like that. So believe it or not, project management for Rugby World Cups can go on for quite a number of years. Olympics would obviously be the same as well, or anything big like that. Next slide, please. Yeah, so look, you guys are all the professionals. I'm not when it comes to the common frameworks. But what I can tell you is the integration that we have between different functional areas and different deliverables. And the very nature of a major event is it's mainly delivered by external contractors who in themselves will have their own project management methodologies, their own frameworks, their own way of doing things. But if I was to give you one example, so in later years, I was responsible, and don't hold this against me, please, for the video replay at International Rugby. So TMO, HIA, and Judiciary Services. So all the video for those guys. So if I was delivering video replay at Rugby World Cup in 2023, I had to deal with about 25 different functional areas. Everybody from state security to logistics, event overlay, accommodation, accreditation, catering, workforce, broadcast, you name it, we were involved in it. But it's just a huge crisscross and matrix of different suppliers, both internal and external. And again, you guys, the experts, you can understand the breakdown of the different frameworks and who's doing what and when. So if we didn't have some form of wrap around all that, everything would be completely and utterly lost. Next one, please. Yeah, so what do we have in 23, 20 nations, 48 games, and it took 5 years to plan that. So Rugby World Cup Limited are already planning for 27 and 29 is well underway. Rugby World Cup 27 is going to have now 24 teams, so 4 more. It's going to be a new round of 16. It's going to be up to 52 games, but still, you're only going to need 7 games to win the final, to win the actual Rugby World Cup. There'll be 3 pool games, the new round of 16, a quarter final where Ireland will probably depart as usual, the semi, and the final. It's a lot of work. USA 31, 33 is already in full swing already. 6 and 8 years out respectively for the men's and the women's. So like any big major project, it's got massive complexity. But in the event side, I go back to my opening statement. If the kickoff's at 3 o'clock on a Saturday, it's happening at 3 o'clock on a Saturday. That's kind of the one big thing between an event and a normal project. If we could move on, please. So to give you an example, lovely, pretty picture. This was from PF1. You can see their logo in the top right there. Like the amount of, it's lovely, it's great to be there. It's a fantastic buzz for the players, for the participants, for the supporters, for even people working on it. It's brilliant, but we have more than just the match venue. You may be able to see in the foreground there's people. This is one of the big screens. This is the fan village. So in addition to all the venues that we had, or the stadia, I should say, we also have team hotels, training camps, big screens, fan engagement. It's more than just what you see on the pitch. That is the spectacle. That is the product, what you see on the pitch. There is no doubt. Only for that, there will be nothing else. But there's everything else that goes with it to engage with fans, to drive revenue, to get more eyeballs on it, to get more people playing it. It's a big thing, Next one, please. Again, another view of fan engagement. See all these people at the front. This was, I think, down in Place de la Concorde. It was definitely in Paris, as you can see there. But you can imagine the state security that's involved, the emergency services, everybody, the meteorological service, transport. The amount of different stakeholders that we have to touch is unbelievable, really, and it's only when you get into it. And that is for a major event. When you get to something smaller, which we'll talk about in a moment, it scales down, but you still have to worry about all these other people and their involvement within the overall delivery as well. Next slide, please. And this is what it's about. It's about the World Cup. It's about changing a nation. And I'm sure some of my other speakers here will speak about the benefits that it has to a country, the social impact, the economic impact, and what it means. And for us, when I was in World Rugby, it was about growing the game. It was about getting people either watching the game or playing the game, or more importantly, maybe officiating at the game. We struggled the whole time. But for a country and for getting the youth out playing sports, any sport, it doesn't have to be rugby, but getting behind the nation and raising the profile, and everything we do goes towards that. And the one thing we always remembered was, and this goes back to the understanding the projects, every game is somebody's World Cup final. Whether it be an under-20s, whether it be a HSBC Sevens, whether it be a Rugby World Cup itself, potentially every game is somebody's final. So we have one chance to make it right. We get one chance to make sure we don't cock up in our deliverables to make sure that the game happens when it's meant to happen. And again, if I look at what I was doing around video replay, I need to make sure that all the footage is available for the TMO to make the right decision. Or more importantly, for player welfare, we need to make sure that all the footage is available for the medics to make sure a player either has been potentially concussed and needs to come off, or hasn't been and can retake the field and continue on to potentially win the game. Thank you. And this is what it meant to France. So some of the figures here: there was a net income of 871 million euro. There was a tax revenue of 84 million. There was 425,000 international visitors extra because the Rugby World Cup was on there. And I'm not going to read out the rest of these numbers. You can, I'm sure, read them afterwards yourselves. But it has a massive impact. It does cost a lot of money to put on. It does take a lot of people to put on, and it takes a lot of volunteers to deliver this as well. But you can see there's big figures there. But it's not just Rugby World Cup. They had the Olympics as well in 24, which rugby was obviously a part of. The Olympics is the greatest show on earth. There is no doubt. People who don't follow any sport will go to it just for what it is. They will want to get behind it. And I was there and I watched rugby, but I went to diving and we went to swimming and we went to athletics, and it's just great to get behind the buzz. But every major event has to happen on time. That is the crucial part, and that is the big difference in normal project management. So on the next slide, you'll see the wonderful Irish team. With a bell that said Paris 2024 that now sits up in Notre Dame. So again, it's, what does it mean for a nation? What does it mean for all these people? Like the Olympics in its own right, for the Olympians that take part, it has huge knock-on effect for them, both financially and access to training grounds and stuff like that back in the home nation. You'll all remember Tokyo 2020 and COVID. I did put a picture of myself in there as probably the only non-athlete on the pitch at the time, but it was amazing to go to that venue after being there in 2019 for a Rugby World Cup where it was packed, to go back in 2020 and there was nobody. We had the players on the pitch, we had the administration, support staff, we had no spectators. Lots of innovation like you see on the right, but that was really it. So major event, look, you guys know all this. I put this one in here just to talk about there is standards across the industries. All sectors have a challenge. And when we look at these four are core to big and small events. So in the next one, we're going to talk about the HSBC Sevens. What are smaller events? Limited budgets, shorter time frames, oceans of volunteers, and that in itself brings a massive challenge. So the scale goes down, the budget goes down, flexibility has to go up. But again, it's somebody's World Cup final. It's somebody's last game. It's somebody, we have to do the best for them. So project management has to be tight. We all need to know exactly who's doing what, where, when, and why, and who's paying for it. So the next slide gives you an example of the calendar of the upcoming Sevens events. So Dubai is on next week. Then we go to Cape Town, and you can see yourself. It's a big circus. It really is. It's meant to be a circus, but it is a circus. People love it. But it's the same. We go around. The consistent thing are the teams, and World Rugby, and the inconsistent things are the different countries that host. They're all fantastic. There is clear things that are very similar. We have to do this regardless of the size of the project or not, the size of the event. But again, in the next one, you're going to see what the differences are. So here's the similars and there's the differences. Very formal Rugby World Cup. Very dot the I's, cross the T's. Everything is done precision. When we get to the smaller events, it's a bit looser. There is a plan there, but it has to become looser. The lessons, like everything, are these. These are the lessons we probably take from every project. But the languages, the different stakeholders, the amount of external people, and the amount of volunteers means we have to be really tight in what we're doing. The big thing for me on the next slide is around knowledge transfer. Because we're doing this every 4 years for men's, and likewise for women's in the intersect and the sevens and the under 20s. You know, we have a lot of volunteers, as I said, and different parties. We don't want to be learning to ride the bike every time. So the transfer of knowledge and AI is starting to prove to be very beneficial here, whether it be on getting the knowledge and how we take that information from people, and also how we give the knowledge back. So we've all seen what Notebook LLM can do, creating podcasts based off documents. That is definitely the way forward we're going to go in terms of moving that knowledge on between different parties around the world. And for all the professionals, so everybody except me, I'd love to hear, what do you think we should do different? What is the one technique or methodology we should use, or is there a mix we should be using? What's new? What's going to help us deliver, or help my ex-colleagues deliver the next Rugby World Cups over the next 12 years? That's me. Thank you very much for your time. Look forward to all the questions.
Right now.
Do I just go?
Yes, we can go here.
There you go. Thank you. It's amazing. I feel like I'm in between two legends here for some reason.
Oh, no.
I'm just a filler in between here. So hopefully I'll be able to share some of my experience and maybe bring some parallels into the sporting world and especially rugby. So you can go to the next slide. I guess it's just a introduction. I don't have slides, so I'm just going to be talking about it. But maybe a little bit of my background. Been doing. I sometimes call myself a recovering project manager. So I'm a PMP. I did my PMP many years ago. So part of that process. But I got exposed to agile ways of working in 2011. And through that process, I had the pleasure of starting a team to be able to help out organizations adopt agile ways of working within South Africa and the broader Africa region, and grew that team from 1 to about 30 people at some stage. And all I'm going to be doing today is sharing my perspectives around what the industry is doing, specifically from that point. But you don't have to show the slide up because it's very odd to see my face staring back at me. So you can maybe take the slides off if you don't mind, Mariana. Just talk, that's fine. I'm not sure if anybody knows, but like the actual origin of Scrum. So Scrum, one of the frameworks within Agile, actually comes from the word rugby. It comes from a journal written by Takeuchi and Onaka in the 80s, and they spoke about the new product development game. And I don't want to bore you with theory, but ultimately they're saying that, you know, the relay race of product development doesn't suit today's needs of constant change. And where, you know, like a team playing rugby, like a scrum, they're pushing the ball over the line and passing the ball back and forth. And that's actually where the origin from the word scrum comes from. So here's an actual connection between the word rugby and scrum and agile ways of working. So that's, I don't know if anybody knew that, but, and so much so that the founders of Scrum, two gentlemen by the name of Jeff Sutherland and Ken Schwaber, they created Scrum Guide in 1995. You'll often find, now a little bit older now, but in the past, you'd find them wearing a Springbok jersey and a All Blacks rugby jersey. Why? Is because they witnessed the All Blacks performing the haka. And they were looking at this amazing team spirit and the spirit of the warrior, spirit of Ba, that they used to call it BA. And they said, how do we create that kind of energy and teamwork for our teams that are building software? So not that exciting as what Roland covered. I'm sure not as exciting as what Gubani will show us, but it is interesting nevertheless. So I think, I mean, from a South Africa perspective, I actually think it's quite similar from a global point of view. I recently attended the Scaled Agile Summit, the SAFE Summit in Denver in September. I had the privilege to be there and just listening to people. And the Agile industry in itself is actually under a lot of pressure. I think, you know, what happened is that it's become pervasive in many organizations, specifically in financial services, insurance, banking, etc. In South Africa, pretty much every bank in South Africa has adopted agile ways of working in some form or another. Every retailer at some point, every insurance company has adopted agile ways of working. The question that you might ask is, has it been successful? As somebody that's passionate about agile and has been working in the industry for 14 years, hand on heart, I can't say that I've completely transformed an organization to agile ways of working. And I see Daniel smiling there. Is that true, Daniel? Because I think it's everywhere, right? That's the reality, what happens. And it's not because of the framework, it's because the methods is sound. What it actually is systemic issues. Typically, bureaucratic processes that stand in the way. You try and, there was a slide up there that said, if you look at software development, 8% of the time is actually spent on development. The stuff that happens before around analysis, design, getting business cases over the line, getting people onboarded, and the stuff to operationalize is actually taking most of the time. But all we do is spend as much time making sure that the people type faster to deliver faster results. But we never think about the systemic issues that exist within organizations. Typically, leadership buy-in is often lacking. What we see is, I sound very, it's quite somber, eh? But it's good news, maybe, somewhere along the line. Leadership, they buy into this because guess what, everybody? It was a hype. When my CEO said to me, but yeah, this is a hype. And I was like, no, it's not a hype, but it actually is. And with every hype cycle, you get the early adopters, and typically that was tech. And then you get obviously the early majority, and as you go through the process. And organizations are struggling with actually adopting Agile at scale. And again, as I mentioned previously, pretty much systemic impediments that are blocking organizations from adopting Agile ways of working, right? But as we've seen from every hype cycle, we are seeing in the market that we're getting more work in the public sector. Typically, public sector will lag, maybe financial services and the private enterprises. But that's what we also seen internationally, both in Europe and both in the States as well as in South Africa. For us in South Africa, we see an opportunity in the rest of Africa because, again, they're probably about 4 to 5 years behind. Now, overall, what happened in industry is that if you take 10 years ago, people started really looking at team level agility and focusing on individual teams. Let's go send people on Scrum training. Let's get them get Scrum masters, all these kind of fancy roles, and we adopt Agile at a team level. But what organizations at scale, large organizations, were realizing that multiple teams need to work together in order to deliver value, and that's when scaling patterns became prominent, right? So like scaled Agile framework became really popular in 2016, 2017, and really started growing that way. Because how do we get people to collaborate in a big team? And I think that's sporting parallels, right? Because you might have the team that is playing on the field, but there's a whole bunch of teams in the support staff in the back end that has to also collaborate and work together as we need to do. And through that process, it's combined collaborative planning, inspect and adapt, as Ayanda said. How do they do that at a scale level? But what has actually happened is organizations are going, oh, it's cool. We may have optimized the delivery function and the capacity side, people doing the work, but we actually haven't optimized the demand side. So one of the biggest systemic impediments is portfolio management. And that's what we've seen as the next trend that we've seen within our environment. Processes or practices like lean portfolio management is definitely growing because organizations are now going, well, we've now fixed the delivery, but we're not delivering. There's always going to be more work than the capacity you have, always. I don't know anybody that's worked in an environment where you don't have enough, you've got too much skills or too much money. There's always going to be too little money, too little budget, and too little people. So how do we make sure that we start aligning strategy to execution? How do we make sure that we understand the capacity that is actually available and matching supply and demand? So through that lean and agile thinking, we're starting to see a lot of growth in portfolio management, and organizations really thinking about how do we optimize the flow of value. Flow of value is a big word. There's a lady that we partner with, her name's Sally Alata. She says, if you want flow, stop the flooding, right? The problem that we have, and I'm sure all of you within the project management community know that you're partially allocated 20% on one project and 30% on another project and 20% on another project. And we all realize that context switching is actually quite bad, and you're not that productive because you're not creating enough focus for teams. So we have to create focus, right? And we can't pretend in organizations that we add more work into the, like, let me give you an example. It's like traffic, right? Somebody says you're not stuck in traffic, you are traffic.
Yeah.
So think about that. But anyways, but you can't add more cars on the already busy freeway to make it go faster. But that's what we do, right? So part of lean portfolio management is to make sure that we organize around value, we create dedicated capacity, and we ensure that the supply and demand matches to ensure that we align to strategic execution. So that's kind of the critical elements that we're seeing in the market here. The other thing is really from an agile industry point of view, the last point that I want to make is really we see a drop in demand of agile coaches. Agility, there was a big industry around agile coaches, scrum masters, product owners, all these new roles. But I think as organizations started realizing, and I'm going to be kind of harsh to the agile industry, there was a lot of fluff behind it. Hopefully I am an agilist, by the way, so I might be criticizing myself a little bit, but a lot of fluff behind it because we're more worried about making sure the flip charts look beautiful and all those kinds of good things instead of the outcomes. And I think that's probably what has happened now. People are starting to focus more on the delivery roles and the focus on roles like agile project manager, because we focus more on the delivery side, is important. However, the whole goal of this is to create high-performing teams. And I'm sure when I hand over, I'm going to talk about that and what does it mean. And that's what we're trying to drive, I guess, from an agile point of view, is how do we create an environment to create high-performing teams. And there's lots of parallels to rugby and sports, and I'm sure Kobani will take us through that.
Great, thank you, Bias. I think we're going to hand over to Kobani now, and we might come back to some of those topics in the panel discussion. Well done.
Good evening, all. I'm Kobani Bolo. Was lucky and privileged to have played for the Springboks. And one of my proudest moments was to earn the number 747 as a Springbok. To think about the Springboks, since 1906, there's been less than 1,000 players and 1,000 people who have played for the Springboks. So for me, it's always a pleasure to sort of represent and stand up and speak about this game that I love so much. Yes, at the moment, after I finished playing rugby, which was in 2011, I decided that I wanted to challenge myself, which is why I got into broadcasting. Started my own podcast, Keeping It Rugby. So give us a follow, everyone there. Silly plug. But Honor and Grace is part of my passion project, named after my daughter, which is a content creative agency. Basically, we wanted to focus on showcasing the female talent and how great these athletes are and why we should take them seriously. But within that, as you understand, that we have to have that agility, which means that we have to create content that people can sort of enjoy and get with it. But let me not bore you about myself. Let's talk about 2016 to 2025 Springboks. I mean, the one person that really comes to mind when you talk about leadership, especially when it comes to rugby. I mean, I met Russell Erasmus on the rugby field. I was playing against him whilst I was playing for the Lions and the Cheetahs. And I put a good shot on him just to remind him that I was pretty decent. And then I wanted to make a move from the Sharks to go to the Stormers, which was about 17 years ago. I made a call to Rassi. I said, Rassi, please, can I just get a shot? I want to play for the Stormers. I want to contribute towards what you guys are doing. And the one thing that I found about the man was that he was well versed in what he wanted to do. His structures that he had. We had a playbook that was as thick as anything. He organized all the players, a laptop so that we can do analysis on all and every teams that we played against. We could go back and review our own trainings at real time, which, I mean, those days, if you think about the players that we had, it was the Skalkbergers, the Jean de Villiers. I mean, those players sort of, everything sort of came naturally to us. And we never felt that data was something that you could use to sort of get an advantage against teams. But he had such a brain that he taught us all on how to analyze the game. No wonder most of the Stormers players that were coached under him, we are all analysts and we work as broadcasters at Supersport because of the sort of knowledge that he sort of shared with us and the way how to watch the game. So how does this all happen? About 2016, when Alistair Katia took over the Springboks. This is after the Springboks had lost in the semi-final against the All Blacks. The results didn't go well, but I think the breaking point was when we lost by 57 points to 0 in Albany. And then after that, it was followed by Ireland, beating us by 38 points to 3, which was a record score. And this is when Rassi was in Munster. Him and Jacques were sitting in the stands that time, and they felt the pain. It affected all of us. Every time in South Africa when the Springboks lose, it really does make the scene quite very somber. It's dire. I remember I even got into trouble for things like, yeah, this is why the Springboks are losing, because all the Springboks is there. So it does affect a lot of the people's sort of psyche. So the big thing that Rasta did, he sort of brought 5 pillars. South Africa had been playing in Super Rugby, and the biggest thing was New Zealand had just won 2 World Cups. How do you get South African rugby back to where it needs to be at the highest of levels, right? So what they did is that to start that, you had to make an establishment. So the first pillar was to establish the sense of belonging, going back to South African DNA. We got big Afrikaans schools. We got very smart English playing schools who have to every year find a way and adapt themselves to make sure that they can compete with these big Afrikaans players who are as athletic and who are as smart. But then there is the other cultural diversities that we have, as we have 11 languages in our country. How do you make those 11 languages sort of represent and reflect what is the South African DNA, which is all about resilience, right? So he always had this mantra, which is called, let the main thing stay the main thing. Might be not the perfect English, but the main thing staying the main thing is about rugby comes first before you judge an individual. So if it's something that I thought it is a very smart way of putting the responsibility back to the players, because you are the one who controls that output by letting the main thing stay the main thing, meaning that if we are given a chance and an objective, we have to make sure that we pitch up for it. He couldn't care if what you did last night and what was your problems at home. The thing is that you always make sure that the main thing is about what we hear about. This sort of evolved as the years went on because the main thing became South Africa, because we had to get South Africa back into the picture. And that was what was the burning desire from within himself. Rassi never liked the fact that South Africa was chasing a unicorn, which was New Zealand, trying to play an expensive game, which never suited us because our players, with their big physical body structure, they are explosive players who can explode within quarters of the game, not through the whole 80 minutes. How does he do that? And to make sure that he can sustain and make sure that we can be competitive against the All Blacks was to make sure that we can have a bomb squad. But the bomb squad was not just going to be a thing. They had to make sure that these players understood the goal at hand, which was to make South Africa great again. The only way was to make sure that the number 1 player that started and the second base player, or even equal fold in terms of how adaptable and how good and competent they are, they make sure that those players share the time and they share the workload, which was a very smart thing, because now with rugby becoming a professional game, you had to use substitution. And this is the first time that coaches started seeing that. But if you go back as a South African, I've watched Rassie do that with Osturant back in 2005 and Oli Leroux, who played in the final against the Bulls. What he did in those days, there was a blood reversal. So if one player has blood, the other one comes off, the other one comes back on. So when people look at the bomb squad and they think it's something that he already sort of started playing around with it only in 2019, it's just that the laws allowed him to do it. So this is the smartness of the man, and that's how far he has gone in terms of how he does things. The one thing about South Africa, we love beautiful brutality. This is collision. And collisions win you games, because in that way you can wear down, especially one of those players who's got the skill set and they can do all of those beautiful things. But if you make one of the most creative players make tackles throughout the whole game, that's how you wear down the whole team, because then he doesn't have the capabilities to sort of empower himself into that game, because half of the time is spending on the floor. Another thing, that the second pillar for Rassie was to get the right people in the bus. It was never about who was the best. It was about who was willing to sacrifice for the bigger picture. If you are not willing to sacrifice for the bigger picture as an entitled player, then you are never going to be part of the squad. It was always about contributing. He's got this chart that he normally uses where he draws a circle and then he puts a dot on the outside. And he says the circle is the game and you are the dot on the outside. It's how much you put into that circle for you to come into the circle. It's not about how much you're taking out. And that's what has become in South Africa. Professional rugby players felt that they could take so much from the game and never give anything back. So now that became the thing of how do you make sure that you have the right characters within the squad so that they can bring more into the game than they take out of the game, which is why you see Sia Kolisi being the true sort of reflection and epitome of this. That was another thing that Rassie talking about, getting the right people in the business, in his bus. Sia Kolisi had no clue that he could be the captain of the Springboks. But Sia put the trust in him because he was the first one who signed him to get into the Stormers setup. He knew what he had in Sia. He had someone that he could mentor. He had someone that wanted it more than anything so that he could be an example for all of us in this country. What I love about Sia is that vulnerable leadership. The first time they had a presentation of what was needed and what was asked and what was going to be asked of any player to be in the Springbok, when they showed them all the fitness charts that they had to go through and the standards that was set, Sia was the first one to stand up in a team meeting and say, you know what, coach, for my side, my honesty, I don't think I am at that level. Once your captain does that, everyone else in the room has the buy-in, because now he admitted in front of everyone of how vulnerable he was in that space and how uncomfortable he felt. And then everyone had to take suit because he was the leader. He was the head of everyone. And that became the way that the Springboks do everything, which brought transparency. Rassie Erasmus doesn't like one-on-ones. What he does, whatever it is that picking aside, naming the team, telling the players what you're lacking, what you need to work on, it's done in front of the whole squad. In that way, you take away the corridor chat that he likes to say, the bickering, the talking behind the back. You take away the guy that he calls cancer, the one who's very happy when he's in the team, but when he's not in the team, he's the first one to always try to pick holes in what is happening around. And those players were worked out at the Springboks because that is a sign of entitlement, which is not to the mantra of that we are doing this for South Africa. So it's those part of things that he started putting out. And for me, what was one of the most defining things in South Africa as a player of color, when we were playing in the 2000, 2000, late 90s, players were deemed to be quota players because of color. So to put it to you, it was that if we were a player of color, there was a number that was needed in the team of players of color, 5 players. But what people didn't understand was that it didn't give a player of color a chance to compete for the team because we were competing amongst each other because the number was 5. So it was not competing against your counterpart. It was competing for the catchment number. So him understanding that and having dealt with the players whilst he was a player, he could see the uncomfortability of calling a Chester Williams a World Cup winner, a quota player, development player. So he wanted to change that for the younger generation. He wanted to put players of color who had the competency to make sure that they can reach their potential too. Yes, he went as far as looking at Mzwandile Stick, who was a young coach back in 2016 and put him in. He was fired from the Springboks, but Rassie, when he got back into the system, he brought Mzwandile Stick on. Now we talk Mzwandile Stick has coached more than 100 test matches for the Springboks. And Mzwandile is one of the most profound coaches that you can find. And he even invented a way that suited the style of a player that Mzwandile Stick was. I played sevens with Mzwandile, we shared a room together. The one thing that he could do was fill space, and he was a workaholic. So him being the off-the-ball coach, meaning that they count your contribution at the Springboks whilst you don't have the ball, because that is the most important part, is to set up so that you can put your team in a better space, either on attack or defense. And this man is the one who came with that mindset to sort of help and make sure that those are the structures. I'm not going to bore you with all of this, but the one thing that Rassie has done with the right people in the bus, he has challenged himself and he has challenged the staff, that he's brought different voices around who speak about the same things that they want to achieve. By bringing Tony Brown with his New Zealand accent, it always sounds as if he's talking something different, but he's just ever emphasizing what is needed for this team so that they can achieve and reach their potential. So pretty much those 5 pillars, they come as 5 fingers in your hand. And if you fold them together, it becomes a strong, strong fist. And that's how the South African Springboks have evolved. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much there, Kobani. That was spectacular. I think it probably gave everyone a few goosebumps there. Just give everyone a second to be brought up in the center focus here. Some very interesting themes across that panel discussion, and I definitely am looking forward to where this goes. Sorry, we just getting everyone up there as the spotlights. Do we have a spotlight for Kobani as well there?
Yeah.
Perfect. Look, I will kick this off while we're getting that camera up there. Kobani, I want to bring this first one to yourself here, and it quite resonates with some of the themes that you were talking about there, in particular around right characters and the vulnerable state for the, I guess, in summary, lead by example, which was honestly resonated quite well with myself. You know, what does winning as a team mean in your context, and how do you sustain that over time? I'm curious to hear from your side on that one.
The one thing that I've been with these gentlemen in the last 6 years, winning as a team for them has become the core of what they do. I was speaking to one of the most experienced, our latest centurion, Vili Leroux, asking him what is the opportunity like of looking after players like Apelele Fassi coming through the system. He says, I'll do anything for these younger players, because at the end, for them, the bigger thing is that they share the spoils. So the fun of making sure someone gets better so that we can all win and eat forever, that's what they go on about. I think that's we all as people, we always love to sort of take, but there's nothing that is more gratifying than giving. And everyone is willing to give for a win. And that's what winning feels like as a team. is you have given so much and you've sacrificed a lot. I mean, these players, excuse me, in 2019, they spent eight weeks away from everyone, got into Japan before everyone got there. That is 2 months away from your kids. And some of them had just young toddlers and babies. And they were willing to do that so that they can all enjoy it at the end, because now they can afford to buy more stuff for their kids, which is, that's one thing. But how do you sustain that? You start to ask the players to contribute in terms of tactics, because they're the ones on the field. They're the ones, that is meaning you empower your leaders. You empower the younger, inexperienced players to come up with ideas on how to tactics, strategy up against bigger teams, because they've got a different point of view. Everyone starts to have a voice, and everyone starts contributing. Instead of you as a coach having to sell a pitch to the players themselves feel as if they own the story, and they're the ones who want to express it.
I mean, again, it further resonates with kind of your comment earlier on with regards to the main thing stays the main thing. And I think that probably resonates there with that answer. Look, we'll circle back on some of your other comments there, but yes, I might bring this first one to yourself and then to yourself, Ronan. How do you build team culture that balances discipline with adaptability, whether on the field or in a project team? And I guess, or obviously BS, you know, the relay race comment earlier, I think probably resonates with this one quite a bit, and sort of the systematic change and leadership buy-ins. You know, can you tell us from your perspective there, BS?
Yeah, if you had the opportunity to read a book called Extreme Ownership by Leif Babin and Yoko Willings, there's a principle that it says discipline equals freedom. And I think if you think about as Gubani said, right, the practice day in, day out, they know the moves, they know the plays. And when it comes to the field, like things change, right? And the reality is that although we practice these moves, the players in the fields, it's so routine for them, they know how to adapt to the situation. And the parallels come into an agile team, right? Because you create rhythm and you create pattern through the routines that you create, right? So Scrum is quite prescriptive in its processes. You do a planning, your daily stand-ups, et cetera, et cetera. And that routine, which is your standard operating procedures, actually creates the flexibility that you have by breaking work down into small pieces that every 2 weeks you'll be able to inspect and adapt and then kind of pivot to what you need to do. So the discipline that is required around that allows for freedom and agility, because it becomes second nature for people and teams to operate in that way. And I'm sure that's Gubani can relate to that as well around in a teaming environment. And I know you want to pass on to Ronan as well to add to that.
Yeah, to bring that one to yourself as ever, and obviously you got probably a different lens on it from the World Cup sides that the others had a view on. But yeah, curious to hear your side of that one.
It's very, very similar. It's about clarity. You have to know what you're doing, because if you don't know, that's whether it be on the pitch or the side of the pitch or in life or in business, that's where confusion comes. So clarity and trust. Like, I had a team of people under me. We had multiple venues going every weekend. You can't be everywhere. There's not a role for micromanagement. You know, for you have to trust your staff. You have to trust yourself, and everybody needs to know what they're doing. And like, you hear the passion from Bobo there. You know, these people, they're giving their lives for it. It's a job for us. It's their life, right? So that we have to make sure we're doing our job, because can you imagine World Cup final? Something goes wrong, suddenly TMO says no try. Like, you'd never make it home, you know. So we don't get the thanks. We're not there for the thanks, right? We're not there for the plaudits. But we have to trust ourselves. We have to trust the people around us, and for that we need the clarity of exactly who's doing what when. And when the proverbial hits the fan, there's no point pointing fingers. You need to know what needs to be done. So yeah, clarity and trust.
Absolutely. And I think that resonates for probably everyone on this call that, you know, how many times do we sit in a team and we don't have the clarity or the trust from the leadership side of things, whether it be on the sports field or in an office. And I think it becomes the downfall to high performing teams, as I say, in an office or on the sports field from that perspective. Just before we go to the next question, I would like to remind everyone, if you jump into the chat, there is a form to be filled out by yourselves as part of the competition. The closest to the score of this weekend's game. I believe there is some lovely prizes which will be discussed later on, but just a reminder, jump in there and get your predictions in. Yeah, so I might bring this one back to yourself here. How do you foster clear, honest communication, especially when emotions run high?
Yeah, I think you touched on it as well. So first of all, there's some practices that you can think about, right? So working agreements. I'm sure that within these team environments, we establish working agreement and ground rules in which we operate. And when we break those ground rules, we create the opportunity for us to call each other out in that space. And I don't want to sound theoretical, but I wanted to touch on what you were talking about, the trust element when you were speaking, Kobani. This trust element, like this absence of trust, right? Like, what does it mean? It's not because I trust you to do the work, but it's the ability to be vulnerable, as Sia did. So I don't know why I need to learn. That if you don't have that, what lands up happening, people can't call each other out. So I'm using the Patrick Lencioni 5 dysfunctions of a team perspective, right? It's not my theory, it's just that's what it is. And if you think about that, people don't commit to the cause, and there isn't accountability, and then we don't focus on the result. If we don't have all those things, the trust, we only focus on individual result and individual performance, on what we want to do, what I do as a player. But if we focus and we create this trust within this environment around open and transparent communication, exactly what Rassi did, it creates that trust for people. And then we focus on the bigger goal, like what we want to achieve, not my individual goals, but what we want to achieve as a team. And I think that happens in sports, and it happens in the professional environment.
Absolutely. And look, I've played in a few sports teams, mainly field hockey back in the day, and did a few tours around to Pretoria there, actually, to the high performance training camp, and learned a few of these kind of things. And it definitely resonates. And I think even throughout my career, I brought that in. And I guess that's probably a key takeaway that we're hearing here today. And Kobani, I really want to bring this to yourself here. Obviously, you know, Bias brought up the Sia's sort of being vulnerable and trust side, but I want to bring the same question to yourself, and particularly around right characters. Like, I think, you know, that's a core piece to this, but it's also how do you foster that to be enabled to sort of have the right players and the right team around you to have the success. So I want to bring this one to yourself there.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you're always sacrificing for the bigger picture, like we said, but it's what you bring. What is your output? What do you put, or how much value are you adding to the system that you are in? How do you make it better for everyone else? Because you want to leave down a legacy of who you are, who your family is, what your core values are all about. And that's what has been the biggest sort of drive for the Springboks, because no one has to be asked. It's the jersey that everyone dream about. Since 1906, there's been 1,000 people who have worn that jersey. So now, how do you value that? How do you put that above your own self and make sure that you can bring that character? Because character is when no one is around. Are you still the same person? Can you be trusted to be given a program that you're supposed to execute without missing a day? And the whole thing is about the pride that you have within yourself to make sure that you can always show up and show that that's the character you are. And that's how people are judged.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I guess probably a couple of takeaways from that would be that sort of self-reflection with regards to, you know, that accountability aspect of it. And I think that then plays into that communication piece, you know, being honest with yourself on the communication, but then also with your team, as you say, fosters that ability, which is really good. Ronan, I might bring this next one to yourself. Rugby teams review each match. Agile teams run retrospectives. What makes reviews truly effective? And I think obviously this is quite a pointed question with regards to TMO in particular. Obviously, there's a play there. But yeah, what's your perspective on this one, Ronan?
I think the previous points about honesty, clarity, communications are all relevant here. But I think it's actually easier in sport. I think it's easier in high performance sport because they truly understand the benefit of reviewing. What worked, what didn't work. I think in business, a lot of businesses perhaps, time is very tight, budgets are very tight. Right, we've delivered. What's next? It's very short-sighted to do that. Again, all you guys, the professionals here, but I've seen it. We deliver on a Friday, we start a new job on the Monday. Well, let's not just take the Monday to Tuesday to reflect what worked well, praise ourselves, praise others around us, because some people don't want money. People just want to clap in the back, say, look, that was a great job, well done. You're not going to know that until you do the review, but also what didn't work, what could we have done better, standard stuff to look at. 9 times out of 10, in my view, that's not really done in businesses, in a lot of businesses I've dealt with, but definitely in sports I see it. I've been so lucky to work with a lot of these guys, and I know what to do. From the outside, I see what to do, and I know how much value to put into it. I think business can learn an awful lot from it, to be honest with you.
I couldn't agree more with you there, and I think again it goes back to that high performance and that drive to be there. That you have to show up every day and want it at the end of the day. As Kobani says, the main thing stays the main thing. It definitely resonates with that one. Kobani, I'd like to bring this one to yourself as well. Obviously, it's a big part of the training that you guys do, and throughout the reviews. Can you talk us through that and sort of the reflection as to how important that is for the team as it progresses?
Can you say that again, Dan?
I was just saying, obviously with rugby teams and the review of each match in the lead up, can you talk us through? Obviously, that's a big piece as part of a team. In the build up to a World Cup, obviously you're probably reviewing every other team's sort of plays and so forth. Can you talk us through how important that is and the effect that it has on the teams?
Yeah, analysis sort of came through in the game very late. And there was a time where everyone wanted to be the cleverest person in the room. They used to try and see if they could see how far they can go, trying to bamboozle everyone. What has happened now, it's effective communication, right? It's 3 things that we sort of are taught, making sure that we can be better than the opposition on this game. And it's all about just making sure that everyone understands it, and then it's about implementing. So the one way that we look at sort of analysis is you scan, you assess, and then you adapt.
Yeah.
I like that. BS, do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah. I think Ronan's spot on. Like, what happens in organizations is like we don't deliver, so we need to work harder. Don't deliver. But there's never time to reflect. And that's a problem, right? Because when do you get improvement, right? And that's the reality that you have. Like, honestly, like, it doesn't matter what you do whether you're doing a waterfall or whatever that is, you have to build time for retrospectives. You have to build time for really reflecting and looking what went wrong, what worked well, and what are the specific things that you need to focus on. But here's the thing, you have to prioritize the action. It's all good and well that you put it into a lessons learned document that nobody looks at. I mean, I worked in an environment, right? So I worked in an environment that did an audit on a lessons learned because they had to click the button. They had to upload a lessons learned document for the project to be completed. They did an audit, and 50% of them only had 1 word in it, just so that they can upload the document, right? Because that's just lip service. I mean, that's not great. So, but it's the action that you take out of it. It's all good and well. We get into a room, we retrospect. But if you're not acting on it, it's actually not worth it. So prioritize, pick one thing. You don't have to fix a whole bunch of stuff. Pick one thing and fix that now.
And it's very interesting you say that, because obviously, you touched on earlier with regards to the discipline equals the freedom, and kind of the idea that, leadership needs to buy into this. And particularly when you get into the workforce, you see it day in, day out, where leadership's so focused on the timeline, the deadline, make sure we get it done and move on to the next one. And why haven't we delivered on the next piece? And as you say, we become this sort of churning of just minute by minute, what can we pump out as an organization versus, okay, did we actually learn something? Can we be more efficient in the way we operate and actually deliver more by taking that retrospective look, and taking the time? And as I'm sure, Ronan, you have over the years from World Cup to World Cup, probably came into play there quite a bit as to that retrospect view as to what went wrong and what went right each time. We'll jump to the next question here. And BS, I'll bring this to yourself first there. How do you build confidence and autonomy for teams to make decisions without waiting for top-down direction?
I think so. So first of all, delegation. I'm talking about specifically in environments and in the working environment. You often people say, I'm delegating this down to you. It's like catching like the dog that catches the car. Once it catches, what you're going to do about it, right? So yeah. I think we need to create the opportunity for that to happen. I refer to people that are closest to the action have the best information to make a decision, right? So that's the idea around delegation, right? So I'm going to refer to a book called Turn the Ship Around from Captain David Marquet. You can see I read a lot. So in that, he was a captain in the US Navy, and he was a captain of a submarine. What do you call it? What do you call a submarine? A ship? No, I don't know. Whatever, vessel. Let's call it a vessel, whatever, right? He took command of the worst performing submarine in the fleet. And he got there and he started giving instructions. Turn the dial, this whatever. I don't even know the language, but you know the story. And the crew were getting confused because the previous submarine had different dials and different instruments. And he realized, he says, well, I'm a captain of a nuclear submarine, and I'm telling the person that actually knows the submarine better than anybody else what to do. So he just changed the language to I intend to submerge the ship, right? Because in that process, that person has made all the checks to say that it's safe enough to do that. And through that, there's three things to create delegation: clarity, so direction. So you need to give the team the direction in which they want to go through. Constraints: what are the guardrails that you're giving the teams? So what decisions can they make and what they can't make? They can't. I mean, he's going to retain the decision to press the button my language. It's late in South Africa. So maybe do sign language now or something like that. But anyway, yeah. But the ultimate decision to press the button, right? For the torpedo, for the nuclear, that's what I'm talking about, right? And lastly, the conditions. Are the teams enabled? Do they have the right support? Do they have right structures? Those are the critical things they need to have in place, right? And make those guardrails explicit. Teams need to know what decisions they can or cannot make. Oftentimes, the team's not taking ownership, but do they know that they can? So that's just from a work environment and an organizational environment. But I'm sure there's parallels within the sport environment.
I'm sure there is, but it is very interesting, and a lot of it actually comes back to that communication as kind of that top piece. Without good communication, which is clarity, and providing the constraints through the communication, you're not going to understand those conditions. At the end of the day, and I think your comment around closest to the information again. How many times do we have senior people within organizations not passing on the information? So you're doing this one little nugget that you could have helped make a direction on had you had all the information. Rona, I want to bring this question to yourself. Obviously, you're managing a whole bunch of different, various different skill sets, particularly when you're bringing a World Cup together. What's your insights to this one?
I think, Daniel, it's all the previous answers to all the previous questions. There's a thread that you can bring through all of this, And
couldn't agree more with you there.
Even if we look at the last one, like around the reviews and the trust and everything, giving people time, I think sport actually has it a bit easier, and the reason being, people want to be in sport. If you're an international team of any or playing any sport, you're there because you want to be there. If you're in a project team, 5% of people want to be there because of what they're doing. The rest of their let's be honest, right? And you know, to Bobo's point earlier, you go away for 8 weeks. Who in their job is going to go away for 8 weeks unless they're extremely well paid, or you know, there's something else there in it for them. So it's the passion.
Yeah.
It's the want to be there. It's all that type of stuff. And if you are passionate about what you do, you will find work. You will find the stuff that you can make the difference in, and you will do the reviews, and you will keep learning and learning. If you're only there for a job, you're getting paid at the end of the month, you're moving on to the next job, it's somebody else's problem. It's your boss's problem to bring you on, if you're that way inclined. Sports people aren't that way inclined. They're there for themselves. So in terms of, they want to make themselves better. They want to make the sport better.
Absolutely.
They want to make, they're winners. That's the mentality. And that's the big difference I see, you know, and I wasn't a sports person, but that's the big difference.
I couldn't agree more with you with that. In particular, you know, how many times do you get into a team, and as you say, you know, 5% of people want to be there, and the rest don't. And it's, you know, it probably goes back to Cavani, your earlier point on the right characters. You know, and there probably is that level when you're in a sports team that enables that. There's an ability that people are already there because they want to be there. You know, which comes into play. Look, I'm going to wrap this up with one final question for the three of you. And BS, I might start with yourself on this one. You know, what are your key takeaways from this discussion? I think we'll probably all have fairly similar ones, but we'll start with yourself there, BS.
Well, I mean, I think the goal is high-performing teams, right? And I think that's the reality that we're trying to do, whether you're working in a sports environment. And Ronan just summed it up beautifully. It's you know, there's a different desire and a different passion, but how do you create that passion in a working environment? How do you create the purpose of being able to understand what that end goal is and get people to be motivated around it? And I think leadership has a critical role to play, right? And you know, maybe I was a bit somber, and it was like, but I'm an agilist. Why did I criticize that? But the reality is that, you know, we understand that there's leaders under pressure. They've got their own goals in mind, but they have to create the space and environment for people to thrive. Ultimately, that's what it is. And I think Grassi does that. I think the top teams, you'll see that the top coaches in the world, that's what they do. They create the space and environment for teams to thrive. And that's probably my key takeaway.
Yeah, no, that definitely resonates there, BS. And look, Ronan, I'll bring this one to yourself now. You can't say the same thing as BS there. So, don't worry, Cavani, you got the last there, so the pressure's on yourself. But
Ronan.
I think move the hat around a little bit to make sure the Irish bit is shown. I think, look, if we were to if business was to take anything from sport, we would look at the likes of Razzies. And the other coaches, even go back as far as Jake White and people like that as well. What did they do? They gave freedom, but they had commitment. They were very clear on what they expected from all team members. And again, looking at business, everybody in the team, what do I expect you to do? Using the guardrails as well. What can you not do? Where do the decisions lie? And it's passion. I've seen too many good teams disintegrate because of bad leadership. I've seen people really come on by good leadership, and it takes so much longer to bring a good team on. It takes a day, 2 days to ruin a good team. Mistrust, lack of information, micromanagement, all that negative things. But a true leader, and we, you know, bandy around the words, a true leader, true good coach is never on the pitch. You look at a rugby team, football team, they're not on the pitch. It's the players in the pitch are winning the game, but it's the conductor behind the scenes that is helping them day in, day out. When the dark days are there, when it's lashing rain, cold, miserable, when they're away from the family, you are bringing them on. You're instilling confidence in them. You're giving them the platform to grow themselves. That when the game does happen, they will lead on the pitch. So for me, business people take the leadership skills if possible.
I couldn't agree more with you there, and it's kind of that leadership idea of that you never get the thanks for it, but you know, you get the thanks when you see the team do well, and it's all about, you know, the team as one performing there and giving that aspect of it. Cavani, going to bring this one to yourself here.
For me, the one bit that I think is very important, doesn't matter if it's in sports or in business, is to build connections. Understand what makes that person drive themselves. Understand what is it that they are in it for, because everyone's got this selfish thing that they want out of any relationship, even in marriages and everything that you do. So by you understanding what they're in it for so that you can meet them halfway, and in that you can present an opportunity for themselves to even better themselves in that space. Because yes, you might not be passionate about running and holding a camera or pulling cables and doing that rig. But then if there's an incentive of me seeing you and having that connection to make sure that you can pull yourself to the other side, seeing the opportunities that may align, maybe being promoted or getting further in your career, I think it's important to understand the team that you're with and the people that you're with and what gets them ticking.
Absolutely. And I think that is the essence of the theme here today, particularly around Agile, is that true leader, I guess, if I was to sum it up there, with regards to, the idea of you're that person who will listen, and you will understand. And I think, that you hit the point there of connection. And obviously, BS talking about high performing teams. Without a true leader, it's very hard to have a true performing team of high performance there. And also creating that freedom and passion. Again, I think that true leader is the one that's able to create that. We talk about teams and having the right people there, but I think when you have that leadership in place that has all the good communication, it enables that to happen. And I think that all flows from there. How many times do we see it throughout our careers that we see a good leader and a good manager, and you want to stay working with them. But unfortunately, things move on and you move to different organizations, but you always go back to that time that you had with that true leader. Look, thank you all. That was a fantastic panel discussion. I hope everyone really enjoyed that. We will come back to yourselves. People are going to ask some questions, but in the meantime, we are going to go to Charlene here, who's going to bring us through a Mentimeter quiz, and then we'll bring it back to yourselves there. So thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate that, and we'll continue the conversation.
Thank you.
Right. Give me 1 second. Can I ask maybe just the slide deck with the QR code to be reflected, please?
And while that's bringing up, I would like to remind everyone there is a form in the chat. Please get your predictions in there so that you can be a winner. It's crucial that you get that in there. I believe it's possibly some jerseys that might be on offer as the prizes. So get those predictions in there.
Okay, I've shared from my side, it's fine, don't stress. What we are going to ask you guys is please, if you can maybe join us on Mentimeter. So it's really, really very quick and easy. All you need to do is take out your camera or your phone and get the camera out. And what you are going to do is you're going to scan the little QR code here on the left-hand side of the screen. You can see I'm highlighting it here. The other thing you can also do, if you do not want to do that, you can go onto menti.com. And you could actually just put in the code 76064188. Yeah, just give us a little bit of a thumbs up if you've joined. Now, the first thing we are going to do is there's at this stage, we are open if you want to submit a question to our panelists. We are going to take just a couple of them, not all of them, unfortunately. But if you want to do that, that would be great. I'm just going to give everybody just a minute or so. We've got 21. I see the numbers are climbing quite quick.
Can we also win a rugby jersey? No.
Yeah.
Can I also?
Can we all just win one? While we're at it.
Okay. Perfect. The numbers are quite standing still. Okay, so what we're going to do is the first question, you will see it on your phone. I'm going to also show it to you on screen. There we go. So our first question is, what's the Agile equivalent of a rugby team's coach? So the options we've got here is the Scrum Master, the project sponsor, occasionally spotted in the wild, the QA tester, the loudest person in the daily stand-up. So let's see, what are you guys saying? It seems like there's only one that's winning at the moment. Don't all go for that one if you because everybody's saying it. Look at all these project managers we've got here. Everybody's right at this stage, it seems like. So that is correct. They don't play on the field, but they make sure the team gets in shape and doesn't tackle each other. Okay, so that's the Scrum Master. Great, guys. So first thing on this, as you guys would have noticed, you had to put in your name when you joined the game. If we have two people that are predicting the score for Saturday quite close, we will be using these scores to actually make sure who's actually getting the final rugby shirt. Okay, so we are trying to audit this in a good way. So please, we are trying to be fair. So please do get your answers in quickly as possible. So the next one, which rugby position is basically the product owner of the field? So you must know a little bit of rugby, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Lots of people know their rugby. A lot of people know their rugby.
Talks a lot and keeps everyone moving.
I think Oxenshire will say something different.
Yeah.
Kobani, what position exactly were you on there? You know, should we put that up there as well?
I was more for 10.
Oh, there you go.
You play centre though, eh?
I also shot at my 10 all the time to give me the ball.
So let's have a look. So who is right? Yes, guys, the fly half. So like the product owner, they got the vision, the plan, and occasionally everybody's complaints as well. Okay. Next one, let's see. Rugby players often say, play what's in front of you. What agile principle does that sounds like? So we've got responding to change over following a plan, delivering working software over comprehensive documentation, making excuses over owning mistakes, and planning sprints in stone tables.
Tablets.
Oh, it's tablets, sorry. Wasn't I looking way too many places here? There we go. I just want to say, everybody was lot of people on the rugby question.
Yeah.
Well done, everybody. So you are all correct, responding to change over following a plan.
So one person.
After a match, rugby teams huddle up to talk about what went well and what didn't. What's the agile version? I think we had quite a bit of a conversation about that today. Therapy sessions.
Needed.
Needed is said here. So that is quite correct, guys. So the retrospective. Then last, so this is your last chance. So make it quick. Tiebreaker. The term Scrum was inspired by the new product development game, HBR article written by, I'm not going to.
Takeuchi and Nonaka. I'm fluent in Japanese.
That's beautiful, man.
In which decade was this article published? Sorry, I see it's cut there for a bit. Oh, this is quite we're getting quite a bit of different ones going in here. So 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, and 2000. I actually think you gave that.
I gave the answer.
You gave them away.
What happens if I was wrong and I misled everybody?
Yeah, exactly. See who was listening.
Yeah. So here we go, 1980s. So thank you everybody for this. It was great. I am going to stop sharing just for a second here. And then I just want to find out, I'm just going to check if we've got any submissions for questions. None. There's no questions as far as I can see here.
Well done, Dan. Asked all the questions.
Very clear.
Yeah, no, I don't have any of that. That's okay. I think the game was much more if people want to play.
Oh, yeah.
So thank
There's
you.
nothing in the chat there.
There's
nothing in the chat.
Nothing in the chat either. No, we wanted to do it on the questions. I don't know if you guys want to give the opportunity to maybe ask 1 or 2 questions. Or do you want to close it out? We've only got 5 minutes left. I think maybe we should share the PDU code.
Yeah, I can share the video code on the chat as well. Do you have the results of the game on the screen, Charlene, or not?
No, I haven't. No, I'm not going to publish it until we've done. I do have it.
There's an audit.
Yeah, I don't want to. Let's see. Result. Oh goodness, I didn't show them, but can we? Yeah, I'll share it with you if that's okay with you.
Okay. All right. Let me share the PDU code here.
Yeah.
It is here on the chat for everyone now. So we have I just added the link of the form for everybody just to get the predictions for the score for the match. So if you could check the link.
There's a question there.
It is a questions for Ronan. Ronan, what is World Rugby doing to get more buy-in from the American audience about rugby?
Yeah, they're doing their best is probably the short answer there. The MLR is doing okay. Not brilliant, it's doing okay. And World Rugby did invest in one of the teams there 2 years ago to kind of bring it on another bit. Look, there's no doubt it's going to be a challenge. Rugby is on the radar of 90% of people in America. It's just not, American football, baseball, basketball, and like football then, and then track and field comes after that. Lacrosse is even higher probably than rugby. So it's definitely going to be a challenge. The Sevens has been there for a number of years. The Olympics in LA in 28, where the Sevens is on as well, will be definitely a showcase for it. But yeah, look, it's going to be difficult. There's no easy answer, I'm afraid, because it's not a rugby nation, right? So bring it to the UK or France or South Africa, any of the top tiers. You've already made client base. America is going to be difficult. So don't know.
Thank you so much, Ronan. Now we explain the rules about the winner, right? So we have one rugby jersey for Ireland and another one for South Africa, right? And we are asking you all up to guess the score. And the winner is the person who most get the points and most close to the guess for the match. Is that correct, Charlene?
Yes, so we've got 38 people that have done predictions. So what we will do is we will put them all together, and then on Saturday after the game we will, or maybe Sunday morning, I might be watching the game definitely. So not going to do that on Saturday, but on Sunday we will quickly look at who got the score correct. If we have multiple people that predicted the score correctly, we will use the quiz results as the final drawing to make sure who actually won it at that stage. Okay, so that's how we're going to process it. That's why I don't want to share who won the quiz, because otherwise that does not mean that you are going to get the rugby shirt. I don't want to get you too excited at this stage.
All right, we are gonna post on LinkedIn, and we're gonna send an email for everyone with the results, right? And yeah, we'll do that probably Sunday or Monday, because Saturday, I believe we're gonna be celebrating on this side here in Ireland.
Love that.
Love the confidence.
Love that.
All
For
right.
you. It's a good look.
Thanks everyone for joining the webinar. Thanks for the presenters. We are closing here, and we're going to be posting the results on LinkedIn, and you're going to be sending an email as well. And good luck, everybody.
Before you close, Mariana, I just want to say a quick thank you to the players, if you can put it in the rugby terms. There were players that made all of this match to happen today. And they did an incredibly extraordinary work to put it all together. This is Team PMI Ireland and Team PMI South Africa. And I'd like to give them a round of applause. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Cheers. Bye.
Yeah, thank you all.